for they are on the brink of extinction. It was not long before I realized that the problems facing the chimpanzees are closely connected with the problems facing Africa, and I soon came to understand that in many cases these problems could be laid directly at the door of the unsustainable lifestyle of the elite societies around the world. A lifestyle hatched in the Western world and exported, along with its values, or lack of them, and its technology, to the developing world. To help my chimpanzees, therefore, I had to start thinking about ways of opening the eyes of those who were unknowingly robbing the planet of more and more of her non-renewable natural resources. There are so many, many ways in which we are destroying the planet, and once we understand, once we care, then we have to do something. When I came to this realization, I knew I had a unique perspective. I had grown up in a time of austerity during World War II and learned to take nothing for granted. I learned that having enough of clothes and of food was what mattered, and I went from that happy childhood to the forests of Africa to study the chimpanzees and live my dream. When I first arrived in Gombe National Park in Tanzania, I found a world where all was pure. The springs that gave rise to the streams of Gombe were nurtured deep in the heart of an uncontaminated watershed. There were no man-made chemicals in the forest. Lake Tanganyika was the largest body of unpolluted fresh water in the world. And then, gradually, it all changed. The population living in the forests around Gombe multiplied. There were refugees from Burundi and from Congo. The trees were cut down. Soil erosion laid bare the once verdant mountain slopes. The people, peasant farmers and fishermen, the poorest of the poor, increasingly suffered. In their struggle to survive, they cut down the trees, and the soil washed away. Many were hungry. Well-meaning foreigners interfered with the ancient fishing methods that had enabled the fishermen to live in harmony with their world, so that in the end, Lake Tanganyika was overfished. The people became increasingly poor, increasingly hungry. And I would leave Tanzania to lecture in Europe and America and see people eating, always eating. More and more food bought, more and more thrown away. People dying of eating too much, while the people of Africa, whom I had just left, were starving. I couldn't try to help only the chimpanzees when people were struggling to survive. So it became clear, to help the chimpanzees, it was necessary to work with the people living in the villages around Gombe. Gradually, I moved into different circles, where I began to learn more about poverty and hunger. As I traveled further and further around the world, I met more and more young people who had lost hope. I found despair, apathy, and anger, and I came to understand, listening to the voices of the wise, that humans are following a path that could easily lead to the end of life on Earth as we know it. For we are polluting with synthetic chemicals the air, the water, and the land. And a huge amount of that pollution is caused by the agricultural chemicals that are used as fertilizer, pesticide, and herbicide to grow our food. Chemicals that in some instances were developed for use in the war against human enemies. I found, too, that we are guilty of unbearable cruelty to the animals we raise as food. We have so far to go to realize our human potential for compassion, altruism, and love. It has become increasingly clear that growing, harvesting, selling, buying, preparing, and eating food plays a central role in the world. And it is equally clear that some things are going wrong. Much of our food is unhealthy. Many people are no longer aware of where their food comes from. Some have no idea what they are eating. In fact, over the past 100 years, especially during the half-century since the end of World War II, the industrial, technological world has increasingly destroyed our understanding of the food we eat, where it comes from, and how it reaches our tables. At one time, humans had a more intimate connection with the earth and the animals that sustained them. They collected their food, used primitive tools to crack open nuts, dismembered a carcass after a successful hunt, and when they had found fire, gathered to eat in their rock shelter, probably with hyenas or wolves waiting for scraps outside. And then, with the coming of agriculture, people worked the fields, ploughing and sowing and then harvesting. Everyone joined in, helping to bring in the grain and hay before it rained. And the women baked and boiled and fried the food and hung hams from the ceiling, and cows were milked, and butter and cheese was made in the dairy. The seasons were important, and the weather mattered because of how it affected the crops. Today there are more than 6 billion human beings on this planet, all needing to eat, and we have seen the rise to power of giant multinational corporations eager to exploit the opportunity of such a vast global market in order to produce more and more food, either to feed hungry people or to satisfy the wants as